Welcome to the Sports and Stilettos podcast. Hey everybody, Rachel V. Hill here. For today's podcast episode, we're going to be doing the second part of Jordan Angeli's episode. So I originally wanted this podcast to be around 30 minutes, but every single conversation I've had with each individual has been up to an hour. So I just decided to go with an hour instead of cutting them all up. So I wanted to make sure I included Jordan's second part to her interview. She was great. We talk a lot about advice she has for young women in the industry. So without further ado, here is Jordan Angeli. I did ask some other women questions that they would have for you and just for women in broadcasting. So I want to get your answers for these. I had one woman who asked, obviously being yourself is huge nowadays, and that's what producers and execs look for. What's the best way to get away from that anchor voice?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because it is hard, especially women's voices just tend to be a little bit higher. And so there is a certain thing that you have to work on in order for your cadence and like your tone to be pleasing to the ear, right? And I think so you can work on things, but I just at the end of the day, I feel the best about what I do when I feel the most like myself. And working on cadence and working on like the inflection in your voice is all okay. But like at the end of the day, you have to feel like you can do you have to feel most comfortable. So I would say just practicing and even recording yourself and going from one thing to the other and seeing how connected you feel with watching yourself when you try to act a certain way versus like you just being you. So I think there's a balance, but I think people want to see real people, right? And that's what we connect most to. So I don't know. It's hard. It's very hard to find that. And I do feel like it's a very challenging industry for women because we feel a lot of pressure about appearance and about, I think I can't speak for men, right? Because I'm not a man, but I just think we think a little bit more about that than men do. And to feel like you, so dress like you would dress, do your hair like you would do your hair, like and act and present yourself, even with your body, like move your body around and like see what feels most natural to you and then stand in that position, and I think little things like that can make you feel more like you even when you're trying to present in front of the camera.
Even just like I've noticed putting one foot out when I'm getting ready to go live, that makes me just like calmer. When I'm standing there and my feet are next to each other and my hands at its like correct position, I don't necessarily I get more nervous. Where compared if I just put one foot out even a little bit, yeah. I just feel more relaxed and I feel more like me. But you mentioned the cadence and the voice. My first year with the WAC, I honestly struggled so hard because I was getting feedback from so many people and they were like, your voice is too high. Your voice is too high. And so I would try to drop it, but then you would lose the excitement, which is what people want to hear, right? You want, like when you're talking sports, you're excited, you're happy. And so I was losing that. And so everything just seemed so monotoned. And I had to just eventually realize and be like, if my voice is higher, but I am excited and it gets other people excited, I don't care. And I don't think executives would mind either. Like, I don't think a producer is going to be like, oh, her voice peaked a little bit right here. Like, if I did a good job, you know what I mean?
Totally. And that's the balance I think that everybody has to have. And it also depends on what you're exactly doing. Like news anchors tend to have more of that type of voice, right? And that is like what they look for. But when you're a broadcaster for working for a specific team, you kind of pull away from that a little bit more. And I think especially in the sport of soccer, it just to me seems like it's a little bit like more loose than the other ones. Like just for example, like I never wear high heels. Like I wear tennis shoes all the time because to me, like that makes me feel like I'm myself, even when I'm all dolled up, right? Mm-hmm. Like it makes me feel more comfortable as to who I am. And I think that's also like in the soccer world, it feels like it's more natural there. So I just think you have to like speak to and dress and present yourself the way that feels most true to you.
I agree. And I think like you're not going to wear stilettos on a soccer field.
Right?
Like that's just not normal. Booties, sure. I rock booties all
Yeah.
the time because I'm 5'4" and I go up to some athletes and I'm like, oh, you are like
Right. But I'm
5'10".
5'9", and if I wear heels, I'm literally taller than most of the team.
Exactly. So it's like, but I agree. Like you're not gonna wear stilettos. So
But
like,
I'm saying that you can if that feels natural to you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm just saying that does not feel like me. And so in order for me to feel more comfortable in honestly being in front of the camera, sometimes it just feels a little bit uncomfortable. And like I get nervous every time, but it's like a good nervous. But to know that I've done everything to prep myself to feel most like me, that helps calm my nerves as well.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. And I agree. Like I will probably always wear some sort of heel just because of how like short I am,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but that also makes me feel more like me.
Exactly.
So I
Yeah.
completely agree with you on all of those. Another question we got was, what is the best advice you've ever had? And then what's the worst advice you've ever had?
Best advice is to watch my play, like my games back, and to listen and to find little things that I am doing. And then I also think what goes hand in hand with that is finding a good mentor who actually critiques you and being okay with that criticism, because at the end of the day, I think we're all in this to get better in life, really. Like we want to feel like we're continuing to grow. And so finding someone who will give you that criticism and being able to handle it, but also being able to critique yourself and watching your games back, I think is really helpful. I can't think off of the top of my head what bad advice I've gotten. Um, I think the things that have fueled me are just like, um, I think being a professional women's soccer player is still not coveted as like, a lot about the sport unless you're
It's
on the
just
national
crazy.
team. And I had stints with the national team. I didn't ever get to, excuse me, compete with them. And so I think that has been really hard for me as a human to be able to accept, like, I know the game. And not only that, like I can continue to get better at knowing the game despite what the world thinks. And so just continuing to, not that that's bad advice, but like I think the thing that fueled me is like, I'm just going to make it because I know I'm good at this. Like I've never been someone who has looked at the people that don't believe in me and said, like, I'm going to prove you wrong. Like I've always been the person to try to prove myself right, and like switching that point of view to say, like, I know I can do this, so I'm going to continue to do it. So I would say that just has fueled me, that to continue to get better at what I do and to not let external factors hold me back.
I love that. I'm going to prove myself right and not prove others
Yeah.
wrong. It's more of a positive look on
I think
you.
so, don't you?
Oh, I think it's more of like you are the one who's making these changes for yourself, not to put it out there for somebody else.
Yeah. I just have always felt like, when I don't get jobs and when things don't work out, because that's happened so many times, I honestly am like, I first thing I tell myself, like, I get frustrated and I cry a lot and I'm mad about it, right? But I'm like, you are good at this, and you feel like you feel like you're your best self when you're doing this, Jordan. So like, continue to tap into that, but also know that like nothing that anybody thinks about me is making me better or worse. Like it's just me. And like if I'm continuing to be better than I was before, that's what allows me to continue to fight for what I think I can get or what I want to get, and not let anything else hold me back.
It's so true that not everyone is going to like you, and you have to be okay with that. Especially when you're
Oh,
putting
yeah.
yourself in front of a
Oh,
camera.
yeah.
Like, you just have to become okay with it.
And for sure. And you're going to get criticized. Like, I hear things a lot of the times about, varying from like things about me being a woman to not knowing I'm talking about to, there's always going to be criticism. And I think that's why it's also important to find a mentor who has your back and believes in you, because that's the criticism that you want. And you're never going to please everybody. So it's like, who cares?
True. Do you have to stay off Twitter at certain points?
Oh gosh. Sometimes, yeah. I think we all do, right? I honestly, I think sometimes it's good for me to read that, you know, to remind me, like, not everybody likes you, Jordan. Like, don't think that everybody likes you. I think that's fine, because it also makes me realize that, like, nobody's praise and nobody's critique is worthy of me feeling like I'm not good at what I do. And
I
that's what I'm saying. I'm just like internally motivated to continue to get better.
And I try to remember too, I'm obviously not on the stage that you're at where I'm getting people in my DMs or on my timeline constantly, but just that there are, even if one person says one bad thing about you, there's probably 100 other people that watched that didn't feel a need to say anything or did enjoy what you did. And
Oh
people
yeah.
are 10 times more harsh than they are nice. So I could just kind of try to remind myself of that all the time.
People want to be heard. I think that's, all of us feel that same way.
Hmm.
And Twitter provides them a platform to be heard. And so just know that, like, it sometimes it has nothing to do with you and more to do with them. So I that's why I kind of just let it roll off my shoulder. Or sometimes I have a good laugh at them, because I'm like, wow, you really felt strongly about that.
Have you gotten any tweets that have been like, they're mean, but they are funny? And you're
Oh
like,
yeah. I wish I had them. Like, I should save them when I have them, because oh, for sure. I'm like, just the silliest things too. Like, I'm like, I can't even be mad at you, because that was so funny. Like, that you would think that.
right. I love reading some tweets where I'm like, okay, yes, that was mean, but like, it was really funny too. Like,
Yeah.
I gotta laugh at myself sometimes too. So I
Oh,
give
for
props to some
sure.
people. Obviously,
For sure.
don't go out there and hate tweet people. Like, that's rude. You're not in their shoes, but like, some of them are funny. So I will
Yeah.
give people that.
Hmm.
Talking about social media, though, you ran the social media for the women's national team, which is a dream job for so many people, including myself. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, that has been such a blessing. That all this whole job with the U.S. Women's National Team and U.S. Soccer came about because of my work with the Rapids, and John Hess, who was the in-stadium producer for the Rapids at the time, recommended me to U.S. Soccer to say, hey, like, I know you guys are doing hosts, and Jordan is our host. Like, she's great. She used to play for the national team. Like, you should use her. And it just so happened that the first game for the women with this host role was in Colorado. So it was kind of like it was kind of like my chance to perform in front of a new home crowd, right? And I loved it. And since then, like, they've hired me for every home match for the U.S. Women's National Team, which is such an honor, and it's so much fun, because I was once one of those girls who go watch the women's national team play, and I had dreams of playing on the national team. And I think that them seeing, maybe they don't understand that I was once also a player and now I'm a host, but like, just inspiring them that, like, life doesn't end when soccer ends, that there's more to be done even within your sport that you can adapt and follow through with. So it's been so much fun. So they had for a while this fan account that I ran, and I got to go to the Women's World Cup last summer and stay with the team for 6 weeks. I traveled through France and won the World Cup, and I got to run their fan account, and it was like a dream job. Oh my gosh. I literally watched soccer and talked to people about soccer in France, like sipping champagne in Champagne country while we were there, and eating all the cheese in Lyon, like all the fun things that you can imagine that happened there. Like, it was just a dream come true. So much fun.
You found out though about going to the World Cup like days before, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, it's been a tough couple of years for U.S. Soccer and the women's national team with equal pay lawsuit and a lot of things that have gone on, and so they were really unsure if they were hopeful to produce some of their own content when they were at the World Cup with some kind of like hosted series. So they had brought this up about 6 months before, and it was something that I actually didn't get the job for. They were going to give it to somebody else, and I was really, really bummed about that and felt like just disappointed, which I think we all feel when we don't get a job that we really want. And that was in January or February, and then at the beginning of May, so that whole thing got scrapped because of that the players didn't want to do some of the additional content. So the whole show got scrapped. And so later on in May, they came back to me and they're like, "Hey, we think that we could use you." They had some people that were transitioning from U.S. Soccer to some other jobs on their social team, and so they thought they needed another person to help with social when they were there. And so we didn't really know what the job was going to be, but 2 weeks before, they were like, we're going to bring you to France. And I was like, "Oh, okay, like I'll go to France." And yeah, it was really last minute and it all worked out. And I think we just had to adapt and figure out what people wanted. And I'll still get people like today when I go to games, they're like, "Oh my gosh, we loved what you did in France." And so it was a really fun experience.
You told me when we were working the WAC soccer tournament that you got to connect with a lot of their families because you were spending most of their time. You couldn't get a press pass, so you had to sit with the families.
Yeah, so in big events like that, you have to qualify or basically register to get a press pass months in advance. And since we just decided I was going a couple weeks before, like yeah, they were like scrambling to find a lot of things for me, a flight, hotels, this and that. But the ticket was just in the friends and family section. So I would do all my work outside the stadium and running around the various cities in France the day of the game to produce like fun Instagram stories and fun Instagram posts and Snapchat stuff for US Soccer. And then I would go into the game and I would be sitting next to Lindsey Horan's family and behind Sam Ewis's family and right across from Zach Ertz, Julie Ertz's husband. And, you know, all these things where it was just really cool because a lot of those women too, you know, I played with Kelly O'Hara, I played with Tobin Heath, and Lindsey Horan is a good friend of mine. And so to get to experience those things next to their family members and to see their reactions, which I got to capture some of the reactions of the parents and the family when their daughters scored big goals in the World Cup. It was just like, it felt like I was serving a purpose that I didn't know was going to be have such a big impact on the players. But the players were like, "Man, I've never seen my parents celebrate my goals before, let alone a goal that you know, got us into the World Cup final or my first ever World Cup goal." So that was really, really special.
How was the flight back to the United States with the team?
Whew. It was a rough one for me. It was incredible, right? We chartered a plane back. So I have never been on a plane like this where you have like a first class seat and you're just like lying down. But they threw one heck of an after party and I participated in drinking the champagne that they were drinking.
I was going to say, how do you throw a party on a plane?
Oh yeah. Well, the girls, the team was all in the front and I was with the staff in the back of the plane. And so they were like continuing to celebrate, but also sleep. And like, they were doing their own thing. I didn't really interact with them on the plane, but they threw, after the World Cup final, U.S. Soccer threw a celebration party for them, for their friends and family. And yeah, that took a toll on me. I was very thankful we chartered a plane home because I was in very much need of that rest. Yeah. We'll just say.
I want to talk to you a little bit with the word that the U.S. women's national team should not get paid as much because they have less skill than the men. I just want to hear your thoughts on it, being a former player and just kind of the craziness that is that statement.
Yeah, I think you know, that statement to me doesn't show really what these athletes are. And I think at the end of the day, that's what they are. They're athletes. And you can't compare a basketball player to a football player. And they're just two different types of athletes. And so I think that it's a really hard one for me to swallow. And you know, luckily for me, I'm not in the midst of that and I don't have to make those final decisions, but it's hard knowing that was once me and that's, you know, maybe somebody's, not a whole organization or, you know, everybody's opinion in the organization, what their thoughts are, but it's hard when you hear that people still maybe think like that and would even say that to win a lawsuit. I think that was just difficult. So I'm just thankful that I'm not a part of it and I don't have to be a part of it, you know. Yeah. But support my friends and you know, all the female athletes out there because Man, it is a grind. It is so hard because a lot of us do not get paid anything, and we do it because not only do we love to play the game, but we want people to have the opportunity when maybe our children have the opportunity when they're older to actually feel like they're a professional athlete and feel like they have all the same things thought about them as male athletes do as well.
True. And Jordan, you do know you are paving the pathway as well, being the first full-time female TV analyst for Columbus Crew. How special is that statement for you?
It's really cool and very special. I think I am lucky that they gave me the opportunity. I feel really thankful that they gave me the opportunity and they believed in me to be able to be that person for them. But I always look at like as the person who looks like they're paving the way. Like there's always people that came before them that you can look at, and there's going to be people that come after them. And I look at other women. There, Kendra Desanabin, who's in Minnesota. She got that same job a couple years ago with Minnesota. So that's like, I've always looked at her and thought like, I can do that too. So she's been an amazing role model. Other women who've called men's games, not only in MLS, but internationally, Ali Wagner calling the Men's World Cup, a huge thing to look at and be like, okay, this is a possibility. And so I'm just thankful too for people that came before me. And like, even though I'm Columbus's first, like, I know that like having more firsts is only going to make this better, right? Like more women in the game, more women in all sports, just with a different point of view. And it's just nice. So yeah, I feel very, very honored.
I want to do one last subject before we head out, but
Okay.
we had talked about freelancing. So you had freelanced with the WAC, obviously, that's how the two of us met. What would you say are some pros and cons to freelancing? I feel like there's a lot of misconception about it nowadays. So what would you say are pros and cons?
Yeah, so all the work I do is freelance work. Even my new job, I'm still a contract worker. So when you're a contract worker, some of the benefits are is you can get a lot of contracts, right? And you can go hustle and you can call as many people as you want and try to negotiate more jobs. And I think that's a real plus, right? Because especially for me being in soccer, there are different leagues in soccer. Like I can call NWSL games, I can call Major League Soccer games, I can call national team games. So even with that, there's so much variety. So to be able to kind of dip into all of those things, I think is nice as a contract worker, which you wouldn't have if you're a full-time employee somewhere maybe. But there also is difficulties, right? Right now it's difficult. There's no games. And so I'm not getting paid a salary when there's no games that are being had. I don't get benefits. Like I have to pay for my own insurance. I don't have, a 401k that I can put into with a company that, or some kind of benefit package that they allow me to invest in. So that's difficult. But for me, I think you have to weigh the positives and the negatives. And there's going to, maybe be a time where that's not the case for me. But for the last few years, like, it's a grind. And I think that if you get into sports, you have to understand that it is a grind. Like, you don't have your weekends. Your schedule is a lot different than everybody else's.
Which does have
like,
some perks. King Supers is not as busy on like a Wednesday compared to a
there you
Saturday, I will
go.
just say.
There you go. Yeah, there's absolutely some benefits. But yeah, your schedule is going to be different. You're going to lose a lot of your weekends, or at least a day on your weekends to games. But I think it really taught me a lot about myself, and I think it'll continue to teach me a lot about myself, is just being able to advocate for yourself and have hard conversations, not only about like why you should get a job, but why you didn't get a job and what you can work on. And because it happens a lot more often than if you're just working for a company, right? You're constantly trying to get new jobs, and that works sometimes and it sometimes doesn't. So, and there's times where you don't make a lot of money. Like I love calling NWSL games. It's one of my favorite things to do because I played in that league, and I want it. I want it to be successful. And I think quality broadcast is one of the big things that allows a league to be successful, because not everybody can get to a game and watch, right? So they want to hear from the best of the best when they're listening, or former players when they're listening. And so, but that's really challenging. My first year, working for NWSL as a broadcaster, they broadcast most of their games out of a big studio in Florida, and they only pay for you calling the games. So I would have to pay for my flight, I would have to pay for my lodging and my food, and I would only get paid $300 a game. And to get down to Fort Lauderdale from Denver is usually was around usually just to pay for my flight was around $400 to $500. And so I, as someone who knew that this was something I wanted to do, I said, okay, Jordan, you're going to use this year as your graduate school, and you're going to call as many games as you can. Because at this time I was still working for the Rapids as well. So I would be down every weekend that we didn't have a home game. I would be down in Florida. So I was going down a couple times a month. And I probably spent $2,000, $3,000 to call soccer games. I spent my own money. And I knew that it was going to be really challenging in the moment when I saw all the money going out, but I had a feeling that it was going to pay off in the long run. So, I mean, that's hard. That's hard trying to make it work when you really want to be a part of a broadcast, but, at a certain point that's financially really difficult to continue to pay to call games. So, there's just there's challenges, but there's gonna be challenges with anything. And I think it's just how you find a way to find the best out of any situation and use it to get to where you believe that you want to be going.
Have there been any jobs where you were like, I just don't think this is a right fit, or that you had turned down?
Trying to think. Not really. I think I've been pretty lucky that a lot of the jobs that I've tried to get, I've either gotten or I've been told no, so the decision wasn't really on me. I think all in all, this decision with the Crew was the hardest, just because I have been with the Rapids for a long time, and I love them. Like, I love the people there. I love every person I worked with. And there's so many people there that believed in me. And unfortunately, it just wouldn't work out where I could be on TV. And after 4 years of having that desire of being on TV and voicing that, it's hard leaving that situation because of the relationships, but knowing to go to Columbus was the best decision for me as a broadcaster. And so that was really super challenging, but I am thrilled, and I love the people that I work with now, and I'm just really getting to know a lot of them. But it'll be a fun experience, a new experience for me. But sometimes you have to make hard decisions.
And you're getting out of your comfort zone too, which I feel like is so beneficial, because it's really easy to get comfortable with a company and then to continue to grow. Sometimes you have to put yourself in a new place. And I think that this job is doing that for you, the way you made it sound like you literally know nobody out there except for your coworkers, and you're having to learn new teams and like learn the history of Columbus. So I feel like it's a good thing for you, I hope.
Yeah, I think so too, Rachel, for sure.
Last one I have for you is, when you are freelancing, how do you determine your value? We all do want to get paid, and obviously you're living off of freelancing. So how do you determine your value? So we won't even talk about Columbus. Let's just say like with the WAC. It's a 1 week thing. How do you kind of determine your value of what you should get paid?
I think at first, with the WAC, I'm lucky to work with you guys for, gosh, I can't even remember how many years I've been doing it. I think that was my 7th year.
Oh, wow.
Or 6th year. Whenever didn't men's soccer come back to the WAC?
Mm-hmm. I think it has been 6 years.
It's been, maybe it was 6 years. So I think with that, when I first started, I really relied on the people that I was working for to give me a rate, right? And that's okay, like for them to give you a rate initially. And then I think as you gain experience, or even when you're getting that first rate, like find a network of people that you trust and know, like, okay, hey, like, how much do you think I should be getting paid? Or how much do you get paid? Like, I ask people that all the time, is and I'm more than happy to answer that for anybody, you know. And I don't find it too revealing to let people know how much I get paid, because at the end of the day, I want people to feel like they're being valued by what they pay. But also, like, your pay, and not you specifically, but someone's pay in their first year is going to differ than someone's pay in their 8th year. But just to bounce ideas off of people, I don't see a problem with that, and I'm happy to help anybody who asks me that in regards to hosting events or you know, doing any kind of broadcast work. I'm always open to talk about that.
Did you ever feel uncomfortable having to ask for more money?
Oh yeah. I always feel uncomfortable about lending money. It makes people feel uncomfortable, right? But I'm the type of person, Rachel, and I say this all the time, and I just said it to my roommate yesterday. It's like, I am always a person who regrets inaction more than action. So if I don't ask, I would regret that more than if I did ask. And so I remind myself that a lot, especially in having tough conversations, is like, sometimes I just have to say the thing that I would rather act on something than to be passive and not act, because that doesn't make me feel like I'm at least trying my best. So that's kind of the way that I work about it. But yeah, of course, I always feel uncomfortable with money.
That's very true. That's like a good way to look at it, though. It kind of reminds me when I was like a teenager and I was like, I'd rather have to like apologize than ask for permission.
Exactly.
But, you know, Jordan, I can't thank you enough. Honestly, you gave so many great pieces of advice. And I feel like you just have such a grasp on everything that you're doing, and you do it with so much passion. And it is so much fun to watch you. And I'm so lucky that I was able to meet you through the WAC and everything. And it has just been such an honor watching you continue to grow as well. So thank you so much for coming on and being the first guest.
Oh, Rachel, thank you so much. And it's been just a delight to get to know you, but also to see you pursue what you want, right? And go after it. So yeah, happy to help you, happy to help anybody. And I think the same thing is, like, even because I've been doing it for a little while longer, it doesn't mean I always have the answers, right? Sometimes I might need to go to somebody else or to go to you to ask questions. So I think just creating this network is really important, because I think at the end of the day, we're all women, we're all people who are striving to be our best and want that connection with other people who are doing what we're doing. So I love it.
For anybody else who is wanting to reach out to you, is Twitter, Instagram, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, Twitter, Instagram's great. I'm at Jordan Angeli on both. It's my last name and my first name squished together. They end in an AN and start in an AN. And I'm like, that's 2 characters more that I could be using when Twitter came out. And one of the guys on the college soccer team, when I was there, he was like, you play like a Brazilian, like Jordan Angeli. And so it kind of just stuck with me. And now that's my Twitter and Instagram handle. So yeah, reach out. I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
I will definitely leave it in the description box of this podcast. But Jordan, again, thank you so much. I have appreciated the last hour we spent together.
Yeah, it's been fun, Rachel. Enjoy your rest of your quarantine day. What do you having for supper?
I have
Box
no idea.
Macaroni and cheese?
Yeah, that's what we ate for lunch, so I have no idea what it's going to be for dinner.
I knew it.
It has been the struggle. Figuring out what to eat, I have no idea.
I know.
I don't want to order out because, like, I'm not really sure what's happening in the world either, but, like, I feel like that.
I feel you. And my wine o'clock is changing every day.
And my sleep schedule is so thrown off. I used to go to bed at 10, wake up at 7:45 for work, the whole thing. I am going to bed at like 1 a.m., sleeping until 9, and it's going to be
start a routine. That'll help you.
True. Awesome, Jordan. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rachel.
I hope everybody enjoyed both parts to Jordan's interview. She's a great guest, as always. I'm always happy to sit down and talk with her. But next week on the podcast, we are going to have a very special guest from the NFL Network. Be on the lookout for that. Stay safe, everyone.